Chapter 2293. Bailey Hongzhuang followed the group but realized that they had no intention of leaving. Instead, they continued to stay near the mountain peak. The three of them found a safe spot and sat down to cultivate. They did not look like they were going to go back. Bailey Hongzhuang followed them carefully from a distance. The leader of the group was far too sensitive. He would notice the slightest movement, so she had no choice but to stay far away. Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang had already understood the thoughts of these people. They had purposely not gone back to the restaurant and had stayed here to escape her pursuit. If she were to follow them nearby, they would be able to detect her as soon as they moved a little. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. They were indeed a group of incomparably experienced people. It would not be easy to escape their eyes. Based on the way they had searched for a place to stay, she could tell that they were a group of people who had gone through a lot of hardships. It was a good thing that she had a heaven-defying divine weapon like the Chaos Ring. The other party would not be able to detect her. Bailey Hongzhuang and Baishir stayed far away and did not pay attention to the other party's situation. If they stared at them for too long, they would attract the other party's attention. The boss surveyed his surroundings. He had specially brought Little Fool and Ah San to this place to catch the other party. A treasure like the blood essence demon fruit would not be given up on by any cultivator who knew about it. Hence, he was almost certain that the other party would be following them. If they had returned to the restaurant, the other party would hide in the crowd and it would be too difficult to find them. However, in this environment it would be much easier to find them. Little Fool, Ah San, you two stay here and cultivate. I'll take a look around. The boss surveyed his surroundings and analyzed where the other party could possibly appear. He must find the other party or he would not be able to rest easy. Little Fool and Ah San knew what the boss was thinking and nodded. The boss's investigative abilities were top-notch. As long as the other party was following them, the boss would definitely be able to find them. Bailey Hongzhuang paid close attention to the other party's movements. As soon as the situation seemed off, she would escape into the Chaos Ring. The other party would not be able to detect her presence. Sure enough, Boss searched the surrounding area but didn't find any traces. He couldn't help but frown. This situation was a bit strange. Big brother, you didn't find anything? Seeing the boss come back with a frown, the waiter couldn't help but ask. Boss shook his head. That's strange. Could it be that my judgment was wrong? He had already searched all the possible hiding places, but he couldn't find any trace of them. It was really strange. Big brother, the other party might have mistakenly entered the tunnel and knew that we might kill them to silence them, so they quickly escaped. Let's stay here for a few days. The blood essence demon fruit is a precious treasure. We must be careful. It would be terrible if someone intercepted us. Big brother is right. Anyway, we have time. There's no need to rush. Ah San nodded in agreement. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that these people had no intention of leaving, so she had no choice but to stay. The blood essence demon fruit was extremely important to Di Baichen, and he could not afford to lose it. Chapter 2294. The moon hung high in the sky as a cool breeze blew past. Di Baichen stood in front of the window with his hands behind his back, watching the passers-by below. His expression was unfathomable and his eyes flickered with worry. Bailey Hongzhuang had been working separately from them for the past few days. Logically speaking, with Bailey Hongzhuang's strength and the power of the Chaos Ring, it was impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to be in any danger. It was because he knew about the power of the Chaos Ring that he was reassured to let Bailey Hongzhuang train in other tunnels. However, it seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang had returned a little too late today. In the next moment, Di Baichen's figure flashed and he jumped down from the windowsill. His figure then quickly disappeared into the crowd. Bailey Hongzhuang stood quietly by the side and could vaguely hear the movements of the three people. The leader of the group was indeed an extremely cautious person. Even after confirming that there was no one else around, he still checked left and right many times. It was only when the night had deepened that he sat down to cultivate. Master will keep watch over these three people. If we don't go back tonight, Di Baichen will be worried. Baishir said telepathically. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright eyes flashed with a trace of emotion. There's nothing we can do now. We can only wait here. She knew that Di Baichen would be worried. However, if they missed out on these people today, it would be difficult to find them again. There were many mountains here and it was impossible to find the three people hiding among them. Moreover, these tunnels were full of twists and turns. It was no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. Baishir nodded. Master's words made sense. This blood essence demon fruit only appeared once in a blue moon and the environment was extremely strange. If they missed it this time, they might not have the chance to see it again for many years. The light turned from dark to bright and Bailey Hongzhuang peeked out to see that the three people had continued to cultivate after eating some rations. It seemed that they had no intention of leaving today. Bailey Hongzhuang was a very patient person. She had already made up her mind that she would keep watch for as long as these people stayed here. Based on her experience, these people would stay here for at most a few days and not much longer. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang also entered a state of cultivation and Baisher was in charge of keeping watch. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Night's curtain once again fell upon the earth and the entire mountain peak was covered in a veil of night. Bailey Hongzhuang thought that these three people's minds. Just as she was about to cultivate, she saw that the three people suddenly stood up and looked around. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly hid her figure. She didn't expect that these people would be preparing to leave at night. Boss, there's really no one around here. Even if that guy wanted to go back and find people to surround us, we've stayed here for 3 days. It's impossible for him to find us again. Because of this small possibility they had stayed here for so long. In the wilderness it was hot and dry and they could only eat rations. It was really unpleasant. It's better to be safe than sorry. Asan said. Let's go. The boss's face darkened. Little Air had always had a grumbling temper and he had long been used to it. Chapter 2295. Bailey Hongzhuang followed behind the three and found that they were getting more and more secluded. They would stop and study the map in their hands from time to time. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang knew that the three of them were planning to take advantage of the night to get the blood essence demon fruit. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but feel excited. However, her worries were also growing. There were 3 of them and the strongest of them was probably at Green Realm level 8. Even if she and Baisher worked together, it would be very difficult to deal with the 3 of them. The only way was to sneak and attack when they were unprepared. Only then would she be able to come into contact with the blood essence demon fruit. However, once she snatched the blood essence demon fruit, the other party would be the first to discover it. Even if she had the chaos ring, she could not escape in front of them. Therefore, this matter was still difficult. If she was not careful, she would be seriously injured or even killed. Master, with just our strength, this matter is a little difficult to handle. Baisher naturally found the problem. Its cultivation was only at Green Realm level 4 and its master was also at Green Realm level 4. The other party was a Green Realm level 8 expert. Even if its master could fight above her level, the other party had the advantage of numbers. The difference in strength was too great. Bailey Hongzhuang pursed her red lips and her eyes were deep and complicated. We can only take one step at a time. If there is a chance, don't hesitate. From the conversation she had overheard earlier, she already knew that they were planning to leave the blood-ground abyss from another direction after obtaining the blood essence demon fruit. This way she would not be able to contact D. Bachin to surround them. Once they left, she would not be able to share the blood essence demon fruit with them. Baisher nodded. The blood essence demon fruit was a must and they would have to fight for it later. As the 3 of them went further and further, Bailey Hongzhuang helplessly found that the mountain was constantly expanding. Without a place to hide, Bailey Hongzhuang could only increase the distance between them. This was the only way to ensure that they would not be discovered. However, the closer they got to the back, the stronger the monsters were. Even if they didn't walk through the tunnel, there would still be some demonic beasts coming out to ambush them. Under such circumstances, the distance between Bailey Hongzhuang and the 3 of them grew further and further. The demonic beasts here weren't the same as before, where she could deal with them with just a slight move. Once she encountered one, it would be a fight, and the other party would definitely discover her existence. Originally, he wanted the white lion to release its aura so that the surrounding demonic beasts would not dare to disturb them. However, as the white lion grew stronger, the aura became more and more powerful. Once the white lion released its aura, these demonic beasts would submit to it. The commotion would be even greater. Not only Bailey Hongzhuang, but the other 3 were also facing attacks from demonic beasts. Therefore, everyone's speed was not fast. Suddenly, a mystical beast appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher. It pounced towards Bailey Hongzhuang without hesitation. The mystical beast's body was huge and its power was at the green state. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly drew her colored glaze sword and attacked the mystical beast. The mystical beasts here were extremely fast. Bailey Hongzhuang's attack had pierced through the mystical beast's body. The mystical beast immediately realized that it was no match for Bailey Hongzhuang and immediately charged forward. Chapter 2296. The direction in which the demonic beast had fled was exactly where the 3 of them were. Once the three of them saw the wound on the demonic beast's body, they would discover that it was caused by a sharp sword and would immediately suspect that there was someone behind them. Bailey Hongzhuang had wanted to chase after the demonic beast and get rid of it, but the demonic beast was too fast. If she were to chase after it, she would definitely be discovered by the other party, and that would be terrible. After knowing that the other party would definitely discover her, Bailey Hongzhuang could only retreat quickly. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had retreated, the three of them had indeed discovered the wound on the demonic beast's body. After the three of them had quickly subdued the demonic beast, they discovered the wound on its body and could not help but exclaim, "This sword wound had clearly appeared not too long ago. It wasn't caused by us." The leader's face instantly turned gloomy. "It seems that my previous judgment was not wrong. Indeed, someone was following us." At this moment, it wasn't just the leader, even Xiao and Asan's faces had turned extremely ugly. They had been extremely cautious along the way, but they never thought that they would still be followed. It seems that the other party's ability to follow them was extraordinarily powerful. They had checked so many places over the past few days, yet they had not found a single clue. What kind of method was this? Who's following us? Come out now. The leader shouted coldly. The three of them could not help but feel a lingering fear. If it had not been for the fact that the demonic beast had run over, they would have led the other party all the way to the blood essence demon fruit. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally could not come out. No matter what, she could not allow the other party to discover her whereabouts. Otherwise, if she were to be surrounded and attacked, that would be terrible. The other party was obviously angry to the extreme, and immediately flew over. Bailey Hongzhuang was constantly looking for a nearby hiding place. She was different from the other party, she couldn't move too much, otherwise she would be directly discovered by the other party. The leader was very sharp and very quickly. He had arrived at the place where Bailey Hongzhuang had fought with the demonic beast. His face was as gloomy as water. In the next moment, the leader had followed Bailey Hongzhuang's aura and quickly chased after her. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang secretly sighed. This was not good. She was afraid that she could only hide in the chaos ring. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to dodge, a large hand suddenly grabbed her. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart skipped a beat. Before she could see who the other party was, she was pulled into a tunnel and hid. Boss quickly arrived at the spot where Bailey Hongzhuang had been standing and frowned. "Damn it, this is the aura I felt 3 days ago. That guy has been following us for so long. Boss, this fellow has been following us without revealing himself. He shouldn't be as strong as us," Little Fool said slowly. "The other party probably wants to contact someone, but they're afraid that they won't be able to find us, so they've been following us, waiting for an opportunity to strike." Asan's eyes flashed with wisdom. If the other party was strong enough, then that demonic beast wouldn't have had the chance to escape. The boss nodded. "It's impossible for the other party to leave so quickly. Let's quickly find the other party. Once this news gets out, we'll be in trouble." No cultivator would give up on a treasure like the blood essence demon fruit. Chapter 2297. Bailey Hongzhuang held her breath. The other party's tracking method was really too amazing. It was amazing. Her tracking technique and concealing ability had always been good. Even if the other party's strength was several levels higher than hers, she was confident that she would not be discovered by the other party. However, this leader clearly had a special talent in this area. Fortunately, this tunnel was mixed with the aura of many monsters. It was able to completely cover her aura. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around to look at the person beside her, only to see Di Beichen looking at her with a worried and somewhat reproachful expression. Seeing Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips could not help but curl up into a happy smile. On the way here, she had hoped to be able to contact Di Beichen, but unfortunately she never had the chance. She did not expect that Di Beichen would actually appear by her side at this moment. Although she could not help but want to speak, the current environment was really not suitable for talking. After the three of them went ahead to search for Bailey Hongzhuang's figure, Bailey Hongzhuang was pleasantly surprised and said, "Beichen, how did you know I was here?" Di Beichen saw Bailey Hongzhuang so happy to see him, the anger that was originally brewing in his heart disappeared in an instant. In this life he was completely lost in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang. He could not even scold her. "Wife, you didn't come back. Do you know how worried I was?" Bailey Hongzhuang stuck out her tongue. Her expression was a bit innocent and apologetic. "I know you will be worried, but I really can't go back." Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's extremely cute appearance, Di Beichen could not help but feel his heart flutter. He was somewhat unable to restrain himself. If it was not for the unsuitable environment, he would have already kissed her. "Why are you following them?" Di Beichen's voice was a bit hoarse, his expression was dyed with a serious expression. Based on his understanding of Hong Zhuang, if it wasn't something very important, Hong Zhuang wouldn't stay here all the time. Hearing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but hold Di Beichen's hand tightly. Her delicate face was filled with excitement. Beichen, these people said that there are blood essence demon fruits in the depths of the blood grave abyss. They have a map in their hands and are preparing to search for them. I've been following them, wanting to know the whereabouts of the blood essence demon fruit. However, they are too cautious. Just now, a demon beast suddenly appeared and I was accidentally discovered. With Bailey Hong Zhuang's words, Di Beichen felt as if his heart had been ruthlessly chiseled by someone. An indescribable warmth and emotion spread throughout his heart. Bailey Hong Zhuang was nowhere to be seen for several days, and her clothes were in a mess. He knew that Hong Zhuang was a person who loved cleanliness. Every day after cultivating she would go back to freshen up. However, she had been following these people for his sake. All of this was for his sake. Wife, these people are very powerful. It's too risky for you to follow them. Di Beichen held Bailey Hong Zhuang's hand, his eyes filled with heartache. Even though it was just a casual glance, he already understood that these three people's battle prowess was beyond what Hong Zhuang and Bai Shi could handle. Chapter 2298. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes, which were as bright as the stars. Normally, most things would not be able to attract Bailey Hong Zhuang's attention. Now, Bailey Hong Zhuang was so agitated and worried because of the change in his physique. Thinking back to the time when Bailey Hong Zhuang had helped him treat his legs, Bailey Hong Zhuang had a reluctant look on her face. But now, she was a little woman who was completely considerate of him, and he couldn't help but feel happy. Back then he had not given Bailey Hong Zhuang the chance to leave. Now with her by his side this was a complete world. Beichen, they've already gone far away. Let's follow them. There are many mountain tunnels here. If we don't keep an eye on them, we won't be able to find them. With that, Bailey Hong Zhuang pulled Di Beichen and prepared to leave. She had been following them for so long. She could not give up halfway like this. However, just as Bailey Hong Zhuang was about to leave, she suddenly felt a force. Bailey Hong Zhuang turned around and threw herself into Di Beichen's arms. Bailey Hong Zhuang was slightly startled. She raised her head from the wide embrace and immediately met Di Beichen's deep and affectionate eyes. Beichen. Without waiting for Bailey Hong Zhuang to speak, Di Beichen's hot lips had already kissed Bailey Hong Zhuang's pink lips. Bailey Hong Zhuang's eyes instantly widened. She looked at Di Beichen in astonishment. Di Beichen's kiss was hot and domineering. His right hand covered the back of Bailey Hong Zhuang's head. His tongue quickly attacked, not giving Bailey Hong Zhuang any chance to escape. He had been longing for her lips for a long time. It was just that he had been with everyone in the team for the past few days and did not have much opportunity to interact with Hong Zhuang. No matter what, he hadn't married Hong Zhuang yet. If he entered Hong Zhuang's room at night, it would undoubtedly damage her reputation. He would never do anything to hurt Hong Zhuang. Even if he was going to marry Hong Zhuang, he couldn't let people talk about him again. Bailey Hong Zhuang slowly closed her eyes and responded to Di Beichen's kiss. She also missed him, missed his embrace, missed his warmth, missed everything about him. She had long been used to Di Beichen being by her side, used to his warm words, occasional hugs and unexpected kisses. Di Beichen let go of Bailey Hong Zhuang after he had absorbed enough of the sweetness. He looked at her flushed face and his lips curled into a wicked smile. My wife is still so shy. Hearing this, Bailey Hong Zhuang's face turned even redder. She punched Di Beichen on the shoulder. You're so bad. She didn't know what was going on either. Every time Di Beichen kissed her, she couldn't help but blush. She only felt that she was too useless. Looking at Bailey Hong Zhuang's bashful look, Di Beichen felt even happier. He ignored Bailey Hong Zhuang's weak punches and pulled her into his arms. My wife, I love you. His warm breath blew into Bailey Hong Zhuang's ear. Di Beichen's deep and charming voice clearly traveled into Bailey Hong Zhuang's ears. Looking at Bailey Hong Zhuang, who was so considerate of him, Di Beichen only felt that with a wife like this, what more could he ask for? Bailey Hong Zhuang, who was originally struggling, became limp after hearing Di Beichen's words. She quietly leaned on Di Beichen's chest and said in a muffled voice, Me too. Chapter 2299. After Bailey Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen had left the cave, they chased after the trio. Previously, the three of them had searched everywhere for Bailey Hong Zhuang. However, they had not been able to find any trace of her, so they could only leave quickly. Now that they had been delayed by Di Beichen and Bailey Hong Zhuang, by the time they emerged from the tunnel, the three of them had set off once again. Based on their judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang's powers could not be compared to theirs. She had only been following behind them to find an opportunity to fish in troubled waters. Now that they had been discovered, Bailey Hongzhuang must have been scared out of her wits and had quickly left. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had followed the trio's aura and quickly chased after them. Initially, it would not have been easy for Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Shi to deal with the trio based on their powers. However, with the addition of Di Beichen, this problem was easily solved. Even if they had been discovered, they were not afraid at all. A moment later, Bailey Hongzhuang caught sight of the three figures once again. Compared to before, the three figures were undoubtedly more cautious. Even their speed was constantly increasing. Clearly, they wanted to use this method to completely shake off their pursuers. Wife, can the blood essence demon fruit grow in an environment like this? Di Beichen walked as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in a courtyard. He was calm and natural. Even though he was following them, he looked as if he had a card up his sleeve. Prior to this, he had spent a great deal of effort to find out more about the blood essence demon fruit. However, this item was simply too rare and no one had been able to preserve it. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment before replying, "It's possible. The blood essence demon fruit grows in extremely hot places and the conditions for its growth are very harsh. However, there's magma here. Who knows, it might just meet the conditions for the blood essence demon fruit to grow." A treasure like the blood essence demon fruit could only be found by chance. Not every environment like this could produce the blood essence demon fruit. Otherwise, the blood essence demon fruit would not be so rare. Now, as they got closer and closer to the rear, the temperature became hotter and hotter, and the environment became more and more suitable. It was precisely because of this that Bailey Hongzhuang believed that these three people's words were not groundless. Hearing this, Di Beichen's deep eyes flashed as bright as the stars. Under the control of Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills, it was now possible to ensure that his leg injury would not act up again. However, if there was a chance to completely change his physique, that would undoubtedly be the best. We're already at the back of the blood-ground abyss. It's not too far ahead, so we should be arriving soon, Di Beichen said in a deep voice. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. The three people in front of her had already stopped and were studying the map in their hands. "Boss, the map shows that the blood essence demon fruit is on the mountain in front of us." Little Fool looked at the map in his hand and compared it with the mountain in front of him. His expression was firm and serious. "All right." Boss revealed a satisfied expression. "That guy probably went back to get reinforcements. We'll take the blood essence demon fruit tonight to avoid any more trouble." "Boss, this blood essence demon fruit is guarded by an extremely powerful guardian beast. We have to be careful if we want to obtain the blood essence demon fruit. We've been preparing for so long. There must be a way to deal with that red flame lion king." Chapter 2300. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's expressions changed when they heard the name of the lion. The red flame lion was as powerful as a level 1 blue realm cultivator. It was a dominating beast that was extremely difficult to defeat. "I didn't think there would be a red flame lion here. This will be a tough battle." Her dark eyes were shining with surprise. She had only seen the red flame lion once. She didn't think she would have the chance to see it today. "Wife, it seems like we have to lower our status today." Di Beichen's lips curled into a devilish grin. He raised an eyebrow and stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. Looking at this smile, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood, and her smile became a bit more sly. "Do we count as a pair of thieves?" Di Beichen could not help but laugh out loud. His clear and bright eyes were like stars in the dark night, shining brightly, bright and dazzling. Looking at such a pair of eyes shining like a river of stars, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt her heart thump. Even though she had been with Di Beichen for so long, his charm was still irresistible. "Wife, if you stare at me like that, I won't be able to hold myself back." Di Beichen suddenly leaned close to Bailey Hongzhuang and said in a flirtatious tone. Bailey Hongzhuang froze. She lowered her head and said, "I didn't." However, she couldn't help but sound guilty. Di Beichen chuckled but didn't expose her. He grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand. "A male and female thief is a male and female thief. Today we are going to steal it." After watching the three of them climb up the mountain, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen weren't in a hurry. They stopped at the foot of the mountain. The Red Flame Lion King was an extremely difficult demonic beast to deal with. Once a demonic beast reached this level, it would have gained intelligence. Even if it was not as smart as a human, it was not far off. Previously they had already asked White Lion about this, and White Lion had given them an affirmative answer. That was, the Red Flame Lion King really did exist on this mountain peak. As such, the three of them would have to expend quite a bit of effort to defeat the Red Flame Lion King. If they went up immediately, they might be mistaken as one of the Red Flame Lion King's allies. There was no need to waste their energy for nothing. After relaxing, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen with a big smile. Beichen, how did you find me in such a big place? Originally, she thought that it would be impossible for Di Beichen to find her, because this place was too big and the terrain was too complicated. Ever since you didn't come back last night, I've been looking for you. Fortunately, I finally found you. Di Beichen's voice was full of helplessness and love. This place was too big. He had to search for 3 days and 3 nights before he finally found Bailey Hongzhuang. However, the moment he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was safe and sound, he was relieved. So you've been looking for me for a few days? Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked. What about the team? Who asked my wife to run around so much? How can I be at ease if I don't find you? Di Beichen reached out his hand and stroked Bailey Hongzhuang's nose. The love in his eyes was enough to melt ice. I've already talked to Xiao Feilin. He will lead the team for the next few days. After a few days of training, everyone's adaptability has improved. I was planning to train with you on the second day and let them train on their own. Chapter 2301. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were talking, the sounds of fighting could be heard from the mountain peak. This place was at the back of the blood-ground abyss. Hence, there were very few people and even few demonic beasts around. Hearing the sounds, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. The other party had already started fighting. Master, let's go up and take a look, White Lion suggested. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. The Red Flame Lion King had already taken the three of them as its opponents. All they needed to do was to find a place to hide. In the next moment, the two of them and the Red Flame Lion King headed up the mountain peak. The closer they got, the more they could feel the shockwaves from the battle. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest could see the battle clearly. The Red Flame Lion King was like a divine beast of flames. Its body was red and its expression was ferocious. At this moment, the Red Flame Lion King was fighting furiously with the three people who wanted to steal its fruit. It had guarded the Blood Essence Demon Fruit for so long and had been safe and sound. As the Blood Essence Demon Fruit ripened, it became happier and happier. Once it consumed the ripened Blood Essence Demon Fruit, its strength would increase exponentially and it would undergo a complete transformation. It even felt that it might have the chance to transform into a human in the future. Not long ago, a group of people had tried to steal the Blood Essence Demon Fruit. They had been killed by the Red Flame Lion King and only one of them had managed to escape. It did not expect that there would be more people coming now. Furthermore, these people were much stronger than the previous group. This was troublesome. Boss, this Red Flame Lion King has been guarding the Blood Essence Demon Fruit for so long. It has absorbed the essence of the Blood Essence Demon Fruit. Its strength is extraordinary. Little Fool had already been injured in the battle with the Red Flame Lion King. His face was pale. Even though he already knew that the Red Flame Lion King was extremely powerful, it was only now that he realized that it was even more powerful than he had imagined. Even if the three of them worked together, they might not be a match for the Red Flame Lion King. This was really bad. Big Brother and Asan's faces were also very ugly. They had just seen the almost ripe Blood Essence Demon Fruit, but before they could even pick it, the Red Flame Lion King had already attacked. Now that the Red Flame Lion King was staring at them, there was no way they could make a move. The only way was to kill the Red Flame Lion King. That was the only way to get the Blood Essence Demon Fruit. However, how difficult was this? Bailey Hongzhuang sniffed the faint medicinal fragrance in the air, and her eyes suddenly brightened. Beichen, the Blood Essence Demon Fruit is about to ripen. She had always been very familiar with medicinal herbs. Just by asking about the fragrance, she could tell that it was a coincidence. She didn't expect their luck to be so good this time. They didn't get the Blood Essence Demon Fruit? Di Beichen's nose was not as sensitive as Bailey Hongzhuang's. He could only smell the faint smell of blood in the air, but he could not detect the medicinal fragrance at all. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and analyzed. I'm afraid that the Red Flame Lion King came too quickly and they didn't make it in time. However, this is a good opportunity for us. While the Red Flame Lion King is fighting with the three of them, we can quickly pick the Blood Essence Demon Fruit and leave. Chapter 2302. Master, we're just going to sit back and reap the benefits. Baisher's eyes shone with excitement. He loved to be able to obtain treasures so effortlessly. If the three of them were to find out about this, they would probably vomit blood in anger. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slyly. If we're careful, we might actually succeed. However, we still need a little trick. Although she, Bailey Hongzhuang, usually adhered to the principle of being open and aboveboard, sometimes she would do some sneaky things which was also harmless. My wife, what's your plan? Just by looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's mischievous smile, Di Beichen knew that Bailey Hongzhuang already had a plan in mind. It's simple. We'll sneak to the other side of the mountain. The blood essence demon fruit is there. The Red Flame Lion King is already locked in battle with the three of them. It won't be able to determine the victor in a short period of time. We'll take advantage of this time to pluck the blood essence demon fruit and enter the chaos ring. This way the Red Flame Lion King will definitely think that we're in cahoots with the three of them. Since it won't be able to sense our aura, it will definitely place all its hatred on the three of them. Although the three of them know that they've fallen into our trap, it won't be of any use even if they try to explain to the Red Flame Lion King. They'll definitely run away immediately and the enraged Red Flame Lion King will chase after them. Once they've all left, we'll be able to leave as well. In a short period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had already come up with a plan. This was the best way to reap the benefits. After understanding Bailey Hongzhuang's plan, Di Beichen and Baisher could not help but give her a thumbs up. Brilliant. Truly brilliant. My wife's intelligence is truly admirable. Di Beichen could not help but chuckle. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly adorable when she was being crafty. This was more in line with her age. Since you've all agreed, shall we take action? No problem. 2 men and 1 beast quickly launched into action. The elemental energy in the air had already been stirred up, and the aftermath of the battle was constantly spreading. Under such circumstances, the Red Flame Lion King Big Brother, and the other 2 did not have the time to pay attention to their surroundings. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had hidden their auras very well. A moment later, a blood-red fruit appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, the woman, and the beast. The blood-red fruit flickered with a sparkling luster. It was extremely red and emitted a demonic aura. With a single glance, he could tell that this was no ordinary fruit, but a treasure of heaven and earth. A faint fragrance wafted out from the fruit, making people feel refreshed. This is the blood essence demon fruit. Di Beichen's black whirlpool-like eyes flashed with a sigh. He had learned a lot about the blood essence demon fruit, but he was still shocked when he saw it with his own eyes. The treasures brewed by heaven and earth were indeed extraordinary. One could feel the abundant energy within the blood essence demon fruit just by sensing it. My wife, this blood essence demon fruit does not seem to have fully matured. If we pluck it now, will it harm its medicinal effects? If such a treasure was wasted just like that, it would truly be a waste of God's gift. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and said, "Don't worry, I have an idea." Chapter 2303. Heavenly treasures would only be at their best when they are fully ripe. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were in no condition to wait for the blood essence fruit to fully ripen. However, the blood essence fruit in front of them was close to ripening. Furthermore, Bailey Hongzhuang had found a treasure in the chaos ring. As long as they could bring the blood essence fruit back, she would be able to cultivate it. Seeing how confident Bailey Hongzhuang was, Di Beichen did not ask any more questions. He immediately began to observe the situation. The 3 of them had already sustained some injuries, but the Red Flame Lion King was still full of battle intent. Di Beichen noticed that this Red Flame Lion King was much more powerful than the village chief's Red Flame Lion King. It was probably a Red Flame Lion King that was about to evolve. Against a demonic beast of this level, if one was not strong enough, one would not be able to gain the upper hand. Come to think of it, he could only sigh at how unlucky these 3 were. They had spent so much effort only to be the guide for this one time. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were very fast. She had prepared some tools before, so she quickly dug out the blood essence demon fruit. Di Beichen, Baisher, get into the chaos ring. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's orders, Di Beichen and Baisher immediately understood and followed Bailey Hongzhuang into the chaos ring. The 3 of them were trying their best to deal with the Red Flame Lion King. Their injuries were already very serious. However, it had not been easy for them to get here. If they were to give up now, all their efforts would have been for naught. Suddenly, the Red Flame Lion King's eyes turned red. It no longer cared about the 3 of them and charged to the side. Because, at that moment, it suddenly realized that the blood essence fruit's aura had disappeared. It had guarded the blood essence fruit for so many years and was very familiar with its aura. However, at that moment, the blood essence fruit's aura had disappeared. It had completely disappeared. The three of them still did not understand what had caused the Red Flame Lion King to fly into such a rage. However, a white porcelain bottle suddenly landed in front of them. Seeing this white porcelain vase, the three people's faces instantly turned ugly. Boss picked up the white porcelain bottle and carefully sensed it. He discovered that the aura on the white porcelain bottle belonged to the cultivator who was following them. Damn it, that guy is following us again, the boss said with a gloomy face. As soon as he said that, Little Fool and Ah-san looked at each other. They both had a bad feeling about this. Boss, why is the Red Flame Lion King so angry? Could it be that the Blood Essence Demon Fruit was taken? When they thought of this possibility, the Red Flame Lion King turned around and glared at them as if they were its sworn enemies. We've been set up. Let's go. Even though the three of them were enraged to the extreme, the only thing they could do now was to flee. Previously, when the Red Flame Lion King was not enraged, it was already extremely difficult for them to deal with it. Now that the Red Flame Lion King had gone berserk, they might not even be able to keep their lives. As for the matter of the Blood Essence Demon Fruit being taken away, they could only swallow this loss. The three of them quickly ran down the mountain. However, the Red Flame Lion King had no intention of letting them go. It chased after them all the way. Clearly, it would not stop until it killed them. Chapter 2304. The Red Flame Lion King had gone completely mad. It had been guarding the Blood Essence Demon Fruit for so many years and it had finally gotten the chance to evolve. Now that the Blood Essence Demon Fruit had disappeared right in front of its eyes, it could not tolerate it. The three of them used all of their abilities to escape, but the Red Flame Lion King was too fast. It was not easy to escape. After the previous battle, the three of them had used up more than half of their elemental energy and were panting heavily. Boss, why did that guy throw you a white porcelain bottle? Little Fool was in despair. They had been running for so long, but the Red Flame Lion King was still chasing after them. He was almost out of energy. Hearing Little Fool's words, the boss looked at the white porcelain bottle in his hand. He had been so focused on escaping that he had forgotten about the bottle. I don't know. There seems to be something else here, but it's most likely not something good. The boss looked at the white porcelain bottle in his hand and wished he could crush it. They had spent so much energy only to let the other party reap the benefits. How dare the other party be so arrogant as to tell him about it? How despicable. However, when the boss opened the white porcelain bottle, he couldn't help but be stunned. Boss, what's wrong? Little Fool asked when he saw the boss's stunned expression. There are pills inside. The boss recognized the type of pills at a glance. They were pills for healing and pills for replenishing elemental energy. They were exactly what they needed right now. In the next moment, the boss handed the pills to Little Fool and Little Fool. Quick, take them. Little Fool and Little Fool were stunned. When they saw the pills in their hands, they swallowed them without hesitation. To them, this was a life-saving pill. Boss, did that guy predict that we would be in such a situation, so he gave it to us? It should be. In that moment, the three of them were speechless. The reason why they were in such a situation was all because of that guy who had been following them. But now it was that guy's pills that saved them. At that moment, the three of them did not know how to feel about that guy. At least in their hearts, that guy was not as annoying as before. Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Baichen, and Baishir emerged from the Chaos Ring after the Red Flame Lion King chased after the three of them. Seeing that everything was going as she expected, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but smile. My wife is indeed a genius. You managed to obtain the Blood Essence Demon Fruit without any effort. Di Baichen was full of praise. This situation was much easier than he had expected. You flatter me. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Master, what did you throw at them earlier? Baishir looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. Previously, it had seen its master casually throw something out, but before it could see clearly, they had already escaped into the Chaos Ring. It had always been curious. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slyly. It's just some pills. The Red Flame Lion King will definitely chase after these three for a long time. Without the pills, I'm afraid that they won't be able to keep their lives. Speaking of which, these three guys were really unlucky to have met her. No matter what, she was still very grateful to these three guys. If it wasn't for them, how could she have obtained the Blood Essence Demon Fruit? Chapter 2305. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Baichen and Baishir finally understood. It was indeed a pity that the three of them had died just like that. We don't know when the Red Flaming Lion King will return. Let's leave quickly. Di Baichen scanned his surroundings. Beasts like the red flaming Lion King were extremely sensitive. There was no telling when it would return. If they caught the three of them but did not manage to find the blood essence demon fruit, they would be in big trouble once they returned. Following which, the two of them quickly left the mountain peak and returned to the inn. Xiao Feilin and the rest were relieved when they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had returned safely. Previously, when Bailey Hongzhuang had mysteriously disappeared, everyone was worried. "Junior sister Bailey, where have you been these few days? Everyone was worried that something had happened to you." Xiao Feiyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with concern. In the entire team there were only the two of them. Hence, Xiao Feiyu and Bailey Hongzhuang's relationship had become much closer. "I ran into some problems and was delayed for a few days. I'm really sorry for making everyone worry about me." Hearing this, everyone waved their hands and said, "Junior sister Bailey, as long as you've returned safely, we can all be at ease." The team was filled with joy and harmony. In the following days, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen did not continue to train in the training grounds. Both of them had good reflexes. In order to save time, they decided to stay in the inn and train in the desert world. The time spent in the desert world was much longer than the outside world. In addition, there were countless beasts in the desert world. It was no different from training in the outside world. When Xiao He and Xiao Bai found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to train with them in the desert world, they were extremely happy. They were already used to training with their master every day. Now that they could continue to train together, it was undoubtedly the best thing that could happen. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's training on the stairway to heaven, her training speed increased again. Di Beichen could only absorb elemental energy as usual. Hence, Bailey Hongzhuang was also using this opportunity to catch up with Di Beichen's training. No matter if it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichen, both of them were extremely talented. Bailey Hongzhuang's training speed was extremely fast, but so was Di Beichen's. As a result, it was hard to close the gap between the two of them. And now was the best time to catch up. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang Ant's training, the disciples were also immersed in their training. They spent most of their time cultivating in their respective sects and didn't have many opportunities to spar. Now, not only were there countless beasts in the bloody ground abyss, there were also many cultivators who would start a fight if there was a disagreement. This was a good opportunity for them to increase their strength. Although they would often return with injuries, their strength would increase in an orderly manner. Hence, everyone was extremely happy. 2 months passed by quickly. "Beichen, there is only half a month before the Battle of Zhuolu begins. I have to head to Limitless Palace." Bailey Hongzhuang calculated the time. They had been out for so long. Before the Battle of Zhuolu begins, she had to make a trip back to Limitless Palace. Chapter 2306. "My wife, you must be careful on your journey." Di Beichen's eyes flashed with concern. The Battle of Zhuolu was just around the corner and he had to lead his disciples back to the Tiangang sect. Bailey Hongzhuang gently nodded. Her ink-black jade-like eyes flashed with a gentle and moving light. Her voice was soft and affectionate. "Yes, Di Beichen, I'll see you at the Battle of Zhuolu." She had prepared for so long and the Battle of Zhuolu had finally begun. During the Battle of Zhuolu, she would meet the Lan family and Lan Qingyan. After more than 10 years of intertwining fate, now it was time to rewrite it. "My wife, I'll wait for you." Di Beichen reached out and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into his arms. From the moment the Battle of Zhuolu began, it was time for Bailey Hongzhuang to face the Lan family. No matter what happened next, he would always stand firmly by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. "Thank you for waiting for me for so long." Bailey Hongzhuang rested her chin on Di Beichen's shoulder. She was reluctant to part with his familiar and warm embrace. Ever since she had been together with Di Beichen, she had missed him for a long time. He had always been waiting for her to openly reclaim her identity. Actually, her name was not Bailey Hongzhuang. Her real name was Lani Xuan. Because of that slut, she had been living under a different name for so many years. From now on, she would let everyone know her true identity as Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Beichen had always known that Bailey Hongzhuang had an obsession in her heart. If she had not found her true identity, if she had not found her parents' dignity, no matter how comfortable her life was, there would always be a part of her heart that would never be at peace. That part would never be truly happy. He was willing to wait. He would wait until Bailey Hongzhuang no longer had a knot in her heart. He would let everyone know that he, Di Beichen, was going to marry the second lady of the Lan family, the granddaughter of the Sun Moon Palace's palace master and the granddaughter of the Heavenly Dipper sect's sect master. She had never been a nameless pawn, and would never be unworthy of him, Di Beichen. On the contrary, it was Di Beichen who was lucky enough to marry Lan Yixuan. Baisher, Xiaohei and Xiaobai could not help but cover their eyes when they saw how lovey-dovey Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were. Master and Di Beichen's relationship was getting better and better. Often, a casual conversation could make them blush and their hearts race. However, they were beasts with moral integrity. When faced with such a situation, they would take the initiative to cover their eyes. Of course, he would steal a few glances from time to time. Xiao Feiyu and the rest were shocked when they found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to leave the group. Junior sister Bailey, where are you going by yourself instead of returning to Tiangang sect with us? It was already strange that Bailey Hongzhuang did not participate in the Battle of Zhuolu. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to leave the group, it was a little too strange. I still have some things to do, so I will leave for now. I will meet everyone again soon. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face rippled with a smile like a lotus flower. She could feel everyone's goodwill towards her. She was very happy when she entered Tiangang sect and was doubted everywhere. Now that she was completely accepted by everyone, she was very happy. Chapter 2307. Bailey Hongzhuang brought the three beasties and headed towards Limitless Palace. Now that she was strong enough to take charge, she didn't need to worry about any dangers along the way. It was because of this that Di Beichen was assured to let her head towards Limitless Palace. If it was in the past, Di Beichen would definitely not allow it. Just from this point one could see how much she had improved. Master, the journey to Limitless Palace is very long. By the time we reach Limitless Palace, I'm afraid that the battle of supremacy would have already begun. Xiao Hei's expression revealed some helplessness. It was a pity that there weren't any flying beasts that could fly directly to Limitless Palace. They could only rely on their own two legs. Even though their current speed was much faster than before, they still needed to spend a lot of time on the journey. Bailey Hongzhuang flicked Xiao Hei's head and said, Xiao Hei, you're sitting on my shoulders now. The ones rushing on the journey are me and Baisher. You still have the cheek to complain? Cough cough. Xiao Hei couldn't help but feel guilty. Master, I'm just feeling sorry for you. Who asked you to not have a pair of wings? Otherwise you would be able to carry me and fly. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. Speaking of which, flying beasts were also the dream beasts of cultivators. If she could have a flying mount, she would be able to save a lot of time and trouble. However, this type of contracted beast was extremely rare. If she had the chance, she would like to find one. Instantly, the three beasties' heads drooped. They still had some confidence in other things, but when it came to flying, they really didn't have any ideas. During the process of White Dew, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't stay idle. She executed fulgurating shadows all the way and maximized her speed to the extreme. Movement techniques were very useful in battle. The more she used them and the more proficient she was at it, the better the effect would be during the battle. Now that they were rushing on the journey, she didn't have any chance to cultivate. She could only practice fulgurating shadows. Finally, Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at Limitless Palace. Compared to the trouble when she arrived at Limitless Palace for the first time, Bailey Hongzhuang now had a token. After showing it to the gatekeeper, she successfully entered Limitless Palace. Hongzhuang, you're finally back. The Battle of Supremacy Palace will depart tomorrow. I was worried that you wouldn't be able to make it in time. The moment Nangong Wu saw Bailey Hongzhuang, a smile had already occupied her face. Mistress, I'm sorry. I'm late. Nangong Wu waved her hand. I know you've been busy cultivating recently. It's fine as long as you make it in time. I haven't seen you for almost a year since we parted that day. Now you've become even more beautiful. Nangong Wu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in admiration. Bailey Hongzhuang was getting more and more beautiful. She was less immature and more beautiful. Di Beichen really picked up a big bargain this time. If he didn't grab Bailey Hongzhuang's heart early on, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang walked around in front of those young elites, she would definitely be the target of everyone's pursuit. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang blushed and said, Mistress, you're overpraising me. Yu Linfeng heard the news and came over. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, he revealed a comfortable smile. Hongzhuang, you really came at the right time. Greetings, Master. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed respectfully. Yu Linfeng was her most respected master. He had helped her a lot in her cultivation. Chapter 2308. I came a little late. I hope Master will forgive me. It's good as long as you're here. Since I let you cultivate with Di Beichen, I naturally thought that you wouldn't come early. Yu Linfeng's face was filled with a loving smile. He knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had a very good relationship. That was why he didn't let Bailey Hongzhuang return to Limitless Palace to cultivate. Looking at Yu Linfeng's knowing expression, Bailey Hongzhuang blushed in embarrassment. Hongzhuang, this time you're participating in the Battle of Zhuolu as the leader of Limitless Palace. You've already met a portion of Limitless Palace's disciples. They're the core disciples. There's also a portion of them who are also core disciples. It's just that they've been cultivating in seclusion, so you haven't met them yet. I've left a spot for you and told everyone about your identity. However, you'll have to settle the conflicts between the disciples by yourself. Yu Linfeng's voice was gentle and elegant. The meaning behind his words was very obvious. As the palace master of Limitless Palace, he could naturally help Bailey Hongzhuang dispel the disciples' suspicions and dissatisfaction. However, since Bailey Hongzhuang was his chosen successor, she naturally needed to have the ability to take charge and lead. It's always good for a young person to have more setbacks. If there's someone to help her settle everything along the way, then her improvement would naturally be small. Recently, Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't appeared. The disciples and young palace master had a lot of guesses. After all, he had never talked about this matter. He only announced it after the Battle of Zhuolu was decided. Moreover, he didn't mention Bailey Hongzhuang's name. He felt that this was a good opportunity to let Bailey Hongzhuang introduce herself. It was better than him, the master, introducing her. Linfeng, for this matter, why don't you introduce Hongzhuang to everyone tomorrow? It'll save us some trouble. The battle for the throne is an extremely important competition. If the disciples were to have internal strife because of this, wouldn't it affect Limitless Palace's results? Nangong Wu frowned slightly. It was obviously a very simple matter, but Yu Linfeng liked to make it complicated. I have my reasons for doing this. Listening to Yu Linfeng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood Yu Linfeng's deep meaning. This was Yu Linfeng's test for her. Master, I will definitely handle this matter properly. Please rest assured. Along the way, her master had already paved the way for her. If she couldn't even convince her teammates, then she would be letting her master down. When she knew that she was going to participate in the battle of martial arts as the young palace master of Limitless Palace, she was already prepared to face all of this. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang accepted it calmly and didn't feel that it was a problem at all, the admiration in Yu Linfeng's eyes deepened. These days, he could feel that Bailey Hongzhuang had been cultivating on this stairway every day. Could be seen how hardworking she was. It hadn't even been a year since they separated. Bailey Hongzhuang had improved so much. He had a whole new level of respect for her. Originally, he thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have a hard time facing all of this with her strength. However, after sensing Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, he was completely relieved. Master believes in you. Chapter 2309. Hongzhuang, you're going to meet Lan Qingyan after the Battle of the Deer, right? Nangong Wu's eyes suddenly flashed with an excited and dazzling light. She had always hated the Lan family to the core. It was just that Yu Linfeng normally did not interact with the Lan family, so she did not have the opportunity to make the Lan family unhappy. The relationship between Lan Qingyan and Bailey Hongzhuang was so deep. Once they met in the Battle of the Deer, the situation would be extremely exciting. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Her clear eyes were covered with a layer of enchanting luster and her expression was more ruthless. After so many years, we're finally going to meet. She had hated Lan Qingyan for so many years, but Lan Qingyan had always treated her as a dead person. Presumably, when Lan Qingyan found out that she was still alive and not dead, the situation would be very exciting. Seeing the sudden change in Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu looked at each other. The hatred in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart towards Lan Qingyan's family was probably deeper than they had imagined. However, after experiencing what happened in the past, this hatred would be deeply rooted. Although Lan Qingyan has been famous for a long time, it's only because of the Rainbow Pearl. Hongzhuang, a fake is a fake. You're the one who was truly chosen by the Rainbow Pearl. Once they compete, the real and fake will naturally be revealed. Nangong Wu's words were full of disdain towards Lan Qingyan. These years, although Lan Qingyan's reputation was very resounding, this woman didn't do anything outstanding. On the contrary, her arrogant and despotic reputation would occasionally spread. As a disciple of an aristocratic family, being arrogant and despotic was nothing. As long as one's strength was strong enough, that was enough. However, for such a person to be the next clan head of the Lan family, this was a bit ridiculous. If it wasn't for Lan Qingyan snatching away Bailey Hongzhuang's Rainbow Pearl, With her personality, it was impossible for her to be recognized as the next patriarch. Yu Linfeng looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Hongzhuang, master believes that you are the most outstanding." From the moment he chose Bailey Hongzhuang as his successor, he believed that Bailey Hongzhuang was the most outstanding. Even though your current strength may not be comparable to Lan Qingyin's, it won't be long before your strength surpasses hers. No matter what, you have to be confident in yourself and in the path of martial arts. No matter how terrifying the opponent is, it doesn't matter. As long as we don't give up, victory will definitely belong to us. You, on the other hand, were born to be the pride of the heavens. If you hadn't been delayed for so many years, your current achievements would definitely be the center of attention. Master always believed that no matter what tribulation heaven throws at us, it will always send us another gift. Tempering is the most precious wealth. These sincere and heartfelt words were full of Yu Linfeng's concern for Bailey Hongzhuang. Lan Qingyin was nurtured as the next clan head of the Lan family since she was young. The entire family used all their resources to nurture her. Naturally, her strength was needless to say. Bailey Hongzhuang experienced the shattering of her dantian and her cultivation was delayed by so many years. Yet, she was able to catch up to this extent. Just this point alone was enough to prove that Bailey Hongzhuang was stronger than Lan Qingyin. However, catching up still required some time. Chapter 23:10. Feeling Yu Linfeng's deep concern, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was moved. A feeling of being touched quickly spread in her heart. Whether it was her master or her master, they were all sincerely concerned about her. She couldn't help but feel touched. She understood her master's meaning. She was worried that she would lose to Lan Qingyin after putting in so much effort to prepare. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart wasn't that fragile. For so many years she had always been in a state of catching up. So what if she had to catch up for a longer time? Moreover, she had a lot of trump cards. She didn't know if she could defeat Lan Qingyin now, but she at least had the ability to contend against Lan Qingyin. Whether she won or lost, she wouldn't lose anything. On the contrary, Lan Qingyin was the one who couldn't bear it the most. Master, no matter what the result is, it won't damage my martial heart. With just a simple sentence, Bailey Hongzhuang had already answered all of Yu Linfeng's worries. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang in high spirits without the slightest bit of effort, Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu also revealed a comfortable and relaxed smile. Although the Battle of Zhuolu was important, they were more concerned about Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, tomorrow is the day we depart for the Battle of Zhuolu. Let me first introduce you to the situation of the Battle of Zhuolu, as well as the situation of our limitless palaces past Battle of Zhuolu. Yu Linfeng's expression was somewhat serious. The Battle of Zhuolu was a competition to measure the strength of each force. If they could obtain a good ranking in the Battle of Zhuolu, they would be able to gain more respect from other forces. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Previously, she only knew a little about the Battle of Zhuolu, but she wasn't very clear about it. After all, each force had a different view of the Battle of Zhuolu. Their arrangements were also different. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally couldn't use the situation of Tiangang's sect to lead the disciples of Limitless Palace. Di Beichen didn't say much to her in this regard. Instead, they spent all their time on cultivation. Every sect and aristocratic family will participate in the Battle of Zhuolu. Of course, the medicine sect and the Yu family are exceptions. Because they were not proficient in martial arts, most of them would not participate in the Battle of Zhuolu. Since so many forces were participating together, there was naturally competition. Everyone wanted to obtain the best results. The situation of the battle for Divine Throne is slightly similar to the assessment that you participated in before, but this is the real competition between the geniuses. Bailey Hongzhuang listened attentively to Yu Linfeng's introduction. Every bit of information was very important. From Yu Linfeng's introduction, Bailey Hongzhuang understood the rules of the battle for the throne. As it turned out, the Battle of Zhuolu was also a small world. It was filled with various fortuitous encounters and treasures. These were all taken out by the various forces as a reward for the young cultivators. Although the items taken out by the various forces weren't the best, they wouldn't be bad either. After all, this kind of thing involved the issue of competition. Therefore, this Battle of Zhuolu was an extremely good opportunity for many cultivators who weren't successors. If they could obtain abundant cultivation resources, their cultivation speed would naturally increase greatly. Chapter 23:11. Every cultivator had their own number plate. What they had to do in the Battle of Zhuolu was to snatch their own number plates. The more number plates they snatched, the higher their ranking would be. Heavenly treasures were all treasures that cultivators could obtain and were not included in the results. The only thing that counted was the number of number plates they had. Not only that, when the results were tallied, it would not only include the number plates they had, it would also include the number plates they had as a whole. From these two aspects, each group's strength would be judged. Because of this, the Battle of Jianghu did not only depend on an individual's battle prowess, but also the strength of the group. Hence, unity was extremely important. Every group would choose their successors to lead the group. Because of this, the disciples would be most convinced. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had yet to meet the participating disciples of Limitless Palace. On this point, she had already fallen behind the other groups. If she was unable to make everyone trust her in a short period of time and listen to her arrangements, then after the Battle of Jianghu, the group would be a bunch of loose sand. Compared to the other groups, they would not be able to withstand a single blow. Every single cultivator who was able to participate in the Battle of Jianghu was not weak. Hence, unity was extremely important. After understanding all the rules, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. The rules were simple and clear. As long as one could snatch the number plate, that would be enough. Master, I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes shone with a wise light. In her previous life, she had also understood some of the competitions. Many times, the more there were no rules, the more intense the competition would be. Because to snatch the number plate, there was no other way to calculate the results. Hence, this forced the groups to clash head-on to determine the winner. This was a direct confrontation between outstanding cultivators. It depended on strength and brains. In this way, whoever managed to snatch the number of number plates would be able to prove their strength from another perspective. Perhaps, the closer one got to the center of the Battle of Jianghu, the more intense the confrontation would be. Hongzhuang, there will be casualties in this Battle of Jianghu. Hence you must be extra careful. Although everyone hopes that there will be no casualties as long as it is a competition between cultivators, casualties are unavoidable. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head. Master, don't worry. I will take good care of my teammates. This time she was not participating in the Battle of Jianghu alone but as a whole. Every single cultivator was part of Limitless Palace's strength. They could not lose their lives in the Battle of Jianghu. Hongzhuang, at times the Battle of Jianghu can be very fierce. Some sects had grudges against each other. Every time there was a battle for supremacy, it would be a bloodbath. There were also cases where an entire army would be wiped out. Battle of Jianghu? Our Limitless Palace has not been established for long. Although we have a certain status and influence in the Xingxian continent, we have very few enemies and allies. This is not good news for you. As she spoke, Nangong Wu's eyes suddenly lit up. However, with Hongzhuang as our leader, the Tiangang sect and the Sun Moon Palace are our allies, so there will be fewer problems. Chapter 23:12. The sun shone brightly and the sky was high. Today was the day that the teams would depart for the Battle of Deer. Hence, the participating disciples of Limitless Palace were all ready to depart early in the morning. At a glance, they were all in high spirits and full of confidence. However, when everyone saw the empty seat of the team leader, they couldn't help but mutter in their hearts. We're supposed to depart for the Battle of Deer today. Why haven't we seen the team leader yet? Could it be that the team leader hasn't returned yet? Then what are we going to do in the Battle of Deer? Ever since they found out that the team leader was the young palace master of Limitless Palace, everyone couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. This was because they had never heard of any news regarding the young palace master before this. However, since it was announced by the palace master, then it was naturally true. During this period of time, everyone was very curious about the identity of the young palace master. However, after waiting for so long, the young palace master still hadn't appeared. This made everyone feel a little anxious. To be able to participate in the Battle of Deer was an excellent opportunity for any cultivator. On one hand, they could represent the sect in the battle and win glory for the sect. On the other hand, they could display their strength on this big stage. Although most of the time the person who obtained first place was the successor, there was also the possibility of an ordinary disciple appearing. No one was willing to give up on this possibility. However, the young palace master had yet to appear. If they didn't have a leader in the Battle of Deer, then wouldn't their team be at a disadvantage right from the start? Not only the participating disciples, but the other disciples of Limitless Palace also rushed out early in the morning. They all wanted to know who the young palace master was. Just as everyone was discussing, Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu's figures slowly appeared in everyone's line of sight. Behind the two of them, there was a young and beautiful figure. Greetings to the Palace Master and Palace Madam. Everyone bowed respectfully. Yu Linfeng nodded slightly. His gaze then landed on Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Hongzhuang, you can return to the team." The moment Bailey Hongzhuang appeared in front of everyone, almost everyone's eyes were focused on her. Even though the Palace Master did not say much, from the way Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, everyone was able to determine that this person was the young Palace Master of Limitless Palace. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang had already changed into Limitless Palace's disciple uniform. She was wearing a light golden patterned robe that was noble and elegant, just like the buildings of Limitless Palace. The golden sunlight shone on her body, accentuating her nobility and peerless beauty. Her gorgeous face revealed a bit of heroic spirit, and when she looked serious, it was impossible for people to associate her with a vase. This was because Bailey Hongzhuang's aura had already revealed that she was definitely not weak. It's actually her? Pei Yifan stared at Bailey Hongzhuang with wide eyes, his face full of disbelief. Pei Yifan wasn't the only one who recognized Bailey Hongzhuang. Some of the disciples in the group also recognized Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang went to the back of the mountain to cultivate with them, everyone was guessing the identity of Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, a cultivator who could be brought by the Palace Master and Palace Madam was definitely not simple. Chapter 23:13. Isn't this woman the one who came with Tiangang Sect's young sect master? So she's actually our young Palace Master? It's really hard to guess. I've only seen her come to the sect once. I rarely see her on normal days. She really keeps a low profile. We have to be careful in the future. Our young Palace Master will be our Palace Master in the future. Gazes of envy and worship fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. As a cultivator who didn't dream of becoming the master of a sect one day. All along, Limitless Palace didn't have any news about their young Palace Master. On one hand, it was because the Palace Master was still very young. On the other hand, it was because the Palace Master and his wife didn't have any children. Under such circumstances, many outstanding disciples would do their best to show off their talents. They wanted the Palace Master and his wife to see them in a different light. No one would have thought that the Palace Master had already chosen their young Palace Master. This made some people feel discouraged. Bailey Hongzhuang saw Pei Yifan looking at her in a daze. Her lips slowly curved into a faint smile. When she was cultivating in Limitless Palace, Pei Yifan was the only one who showed some kindness to her. Therefore she had a deep impression of Pei Yifan. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's smile, Pei Yifan realized that he was being rude. He retracted his gaze embarrassedly. Bailey Hongzhuang is my Limitless Palace's young Palace Master. Previously, I sent her out to settle some matters. That's why she's meeting with everyone today. Yu Linfeng's gentle voice slowly rang out. It clearly entered everyone's ears. After receiving Yu Linfeng's confirmation, everyone sighed. At the same time, they understood why Bailey Hongzhuang didn't appear before them. I believe everyone knows the meaning and danger of the Battle of Zhuolu. I hope that everyone can work together and achieve a good result in the Battle of Zhuolu. This is a stage that belongs to you youngsters. You have the courage to fight and fight. This is the courage of youngsters. You have to tell everyone the true strength of our Limitless Palace. Tell me, do you have the confidence? Yu Linfeng's voice was sonorous. This was a stage for the cultivators of various forces to vie for supremacy. Even though Limitless Palace had only been established in the Xingxian continent for a short period of time, their aura and confidence were not weaker than anyone else's. The disciples of Limitless Palace would not be any worse than the disciples of other powers. Hearing Yu Linfeng's words, the disciples all felt their blood boil. Previously, they were all thinking of achieving good results in the battle of vying for deer. But now, after hearing Yu Linfeng's words, a sense of honor for their sect quickly rose in their hearts. They were disciples of Limitless Palace. From the moment they participated in the Battle of Zhuolu, all of their actions represented Limitless Palace. They were bound together for good or ill. Yes. The disciples shouted one after another. They had worked so hard to cultivate for so long just to let the entire Xingxian continent know their strength. Yu Linfeng revealed a look of satisfaction when he saw the excitement in the disciples' eyes. The vigor of the disciples of Limitless Palace would definitely not lose to anyone else. Very good. Yu Linfeng nodded. This is the true strength of our Limitless Palace's disciples. Chapter 23:14. For a moment, all the participating disciples felt their blood boiling. They were the heroes of Limitless Palace. For this honor they were willing to give it their all. Before we enter the battle for deer, I have one more thing to tell everyone. Yu Linfeng's voice was less sonorous and more gentle. His gaze swept across Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. All of you are outstanding disciples of the palace. I hope that you will be able to achieve good results in the battle for deer. However, I hope that all of you will be able to return safely. Once these words were spoken, all the disciples were moved. All of them understood how important the battle for deer was to the palace. Every time the battle for deer's ranking was related to the palace's right to speak. If they ended up at the bottom, they would be ridiculed by everyone. However, under such circumstances, they never thought that the palace master would be most concerned about their safety. So, you can work hard, you can fight hard. However, all of this must be done under the premise of your own safety. If all of you are no longer around, then this ranking will be of no use to the palace. Everyone. Do you understand? We understand. It was these warm and caring words that made everyone want to work hard to achieve good results for Limitless Palace. In fact, the palace master had always treated them extremely well. He did not have the same restrictions as the other sects. Even when the palace master appeared, he had an amiable look and did not put on any airs. Many people felt that Limitless Palace had only been established for a short period of time. However, they were very clear that Limitless Palace was not inferior to the other sects in any aspect. To be able to become a disciple of Limitless Palace was their pride. Then everyone get ready to set off. Yu Linfeng's face was filled with smiles as he led the participating disciples towards the teleportation array. Every battle for deer was held at a specific location. Hence, every sect had their own teleportation array. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest followed closely behind the palace master and the elders. They were filled with curiosity towards the upcoming battle for deer. Very quickly, everyone arrived at the teleportation array. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang was no stranger to the teleportation array. However, there were still many disciples who were amazed when they saw the teleportation array. The battle for deer will last for 3 months. After 3 months we will be here to pick you up. Yu Linfeng smiled faintly. The battle for deer was not long. It could be seen that the battle for deer did not have a large area. Within 3 months there would be many clashes. The faces of the disciples were filled with anticipation. They had long heard of how amazing the battle of Jianghu was and how many treasures there were. If they were lucky, they would be able to raise their cultivation by quite a bit in the next 3 months. Now, everyone enter the teleportation array. Grand Elder Gu Taihong's voice rang out. In the next moment, everyone walked into the teleportation array and felt a kind of energy surround them. Then, when they opened their eyes again, they were already in another place. This was a lush and verdant world. The sun shone brightly and the air was fresh. It was like an otherworldly paradise, making one feel comfortable. Chapter 23:15. We should be at the edge of the Battle of Jianghu now. The possibility of encountering cultivators from other forces isn't high. However, the closer we get, the higher the possibility of encountering them. Bailey Hongzhuang was very familiar with this situation. It was just like the assessment competition. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone had different expressions. Although they already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was the young palace master, they didn't have any understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang before this. They weren't familiar with her. Not only that, Bailey Hongzhuang looked extremely young. She was probably the youngest person in their team. At such a young age, her cultivation shouldn't be that strong. Under such circumstances, it was difficult to convince the entire team to listen to her commands. After all, as a cultivator, strength was always the most important. It was hard for a strong person to accept the orders of a weak person. Everyone knew that it wasn't enough to convince others with just one's identity. Only by displaying the ability to convince others would they accept it from the bottom of their hearts. In an instant, the cultivators had different expressions. They were all loyal to Limitless Palace and would listen to the palace master's orders. However, they couldn't help but wonder. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was able to become the young palace master of Limitless Palace, she must have something outstanding about her. However, they didn't know what it was. Master, this group of people are really unconvinced by you. Xiao He understood after seeing everyone's expression. Although everyone knew about Bailey Hongzhuang's identity, they still had to show some of their true abilities. We expected this situation long ago. However, our master is someone with true abilities. She's not afraid at all. Xiaobai looked proud. In fact, their master's abilities had never been weak. Previously, there were so many people who were unconvinced in Tiangang's sect because their master didn't intend to bother with them. Now that their master's strength was much stronger than before, she could definitely convince this group of people. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up everyone's expression. The Battle of Zhuolu would last for 3 months. They didn't need to be anxious. Rather than having conflicts later on due to differences of opinion, it was better to take advantage of this opportunity to completely eliminate this hidden danger. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly took a step forward and stood in front of everyone. I know that everyone doesn't know much about me and has some doubts about my strength and leadership. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's expression changed. They did have such an idea in their minds, but they did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to take the initiative to bring it up. Pei Yifan and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. When Bailey Hongzhuang taught Chewing Fei a lesson, they had seen Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. Based on Bailey Hongzhuang's age, it was already very outstanding for her to possess such power. However, in the battle for the throne, everyone was not looking at potential but power. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang's strength had not been comparable to Pei Yifan's, but now her strength should be comparable to Pei Yifan's. One had to know that Pei Yifan's strength was only average in the team. Chapter 23:16. For the next 3 months we will all be teammates. As the team leader, I naturally hope that everyone will have the same goal and listen to each other's opinions. Every team participating in the Battle of Zhuolu is extremely powerful. If we don't work together and are scattered, it will be impossible for us to achieve a good result. So, if anyone is unconvinced of my strength, you can step forward now. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone looked at each other. None of them thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be so honest. Bailey Hongzhuang stood quietly at the same spot. Her expression was indifferent. Tiangang's sect was an extremely powerful sect. If she could defeat Xiao Feiyu and the other disciples, she was confident that she could defeat any disciple in the Limitless Palace team who challenged her. Although everyone had some opinions about Bailey Hongzhuang, they still listened to the palace master's words. So they didn't know what to do at that moment. Since that's the case, young palace master, let me challenge you. In the next moment, a woman slowly stepped forward from the team and came in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Yanao Shuang. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly recognized this woman. Yesterday she didn't come to meet the cultivators in the team. However, Mistress introduced them to her and understood the characteristics of each of her teammates. Yanao Shuang was ranked second in the team. She was cold and arrogant. Although she was a woman, her strength was not to be underestimated. Normally, Yanao Shuang's reputation in the sect was very high. When the other disciples saw Yanao Shuang stand up, their eyes also lit up. With Yanao Shuang's strength, if Bailey Hongzhuang could defeat her, it would prove Bailey Hongzhuang's strength. Please. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. She extended her hand and made a pleased gesture. It was obvious that she was calm and composed about this challenge. When Pei Yifan saw Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent look, he couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Back then, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't very strong. Now that she was facing Yanao Shuang's challenge, there was a high chance that she would fail. At the very least, with his strength, it was impossible for him to deal with Yanao Shuang. He had a good impression of Bailey Hongzhuang and didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to fail like this. However, this question was raised by Bailey Hongzhuang herself, so there was really no way around it. However, what happened next exceeded everyone's expectations. This was because the moment Bailey Hongzhuang revealed her cultivation, all the disciples' expressions changed. First rank of the Blue Realm. It was shocking that Bailey Hongzhuang had reached level 1 of the Blue Realm at such a young age. Pei Yifan's eyes widened as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. He was only at the 5th stage of the Blue Realm, and this was achieved with the help of the sect. Originally, he was very satisfied with his cultivation speed. Being able to reach such a cultivation at such a young age meant that his future was limitless. However, compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, his cultivation speed was simply too slow. Pei Yifan simply couldn't understand. How did Bailey Hongzhuang cultivate? In just 1 year, Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation had increased so much. It was too shocking. The dissatisfaction in the hearts of the other disciples gradually dissipated after they sensed the cultivation level of Yi Shiwen. Chapter 23:17. As expected, Bailey Hongzhuang defeated Yanao Shuang. Her speed had exceeded everyone's expectations. After just one exchange, Everyone understood that not only was Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation high enough, even her battle prowess matched her strength. At the very least they could not defeat Bailey Hongzhuang. The young palace lord is indeed the young palace lord. Her strength and talent are truly shocking. There will always be someone better than you. Every force will have some abnormal people. We have one in our palace too. No matter what, we can rest assured that the young palace lord has such strength. Although the disciples were deeply moved, most of them felt happy. The young palace lord's strength was so strong. She would definitely be able to lead them to achieve good results in the battle for divine throne. Young palace lord, I'm convinced. Yan Aoshuang clasped her hands and bowed respectfully to Bailey Hongzhuang. As a woman, she had the greatest opinion of the young Bailey Hongzhuang. However, from the moment Bailey Hongzhuang defeated her, she was already convinced. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and her gaze fell on the other disciples. Is there anyone else who wants to challenge? At this moment, no one had any objections. They immediately bowed and said, "We will listen to the young palace lord's arrangements." Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes sized up the 9 disciples in front of her. After seeing that the doubts in everyone's eyes had disappeared, she finally showed a satisfied expression. In fact, she was also astonished by her own cultivation speed. If her master had not allowed her to cultivate on the stairway to heaven, she would not have been able to reach this step. She did not know what Lan Qingyan's cultivation level was, but she believed that she had the ability to contend with her. Since no one has any objections, let's set off. A light and moving smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's elegant and refined face. Compared to her previous seriousness, her current attitude was undoubtedly much more amiable. Any cultivator who could reach this stage had a mature sense of right and wrong. As long as they knew that she had the strength to lead the team, there was no need to worry about others having other thoughts. After all, from the moment they entered the Battle of Zhuolu, they were already a team. They were bound together for good or ill. If anything went wrong, none of them would benefit. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Bai Shi could not help but give Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up when they saw how easily she had resolved the matter. In just a few months, Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude had changed again. She had become more direct and efficient, or perhaps simple and crude. The attitude of a person in a superior position had completely erupted. In her previous life, Bailey Hongzhuang had such a style of doing things. Now that she was the young palace mistress of Limitless Palace, she had to act like a young palace mistress. At the very least, in this team she would not allow anyone to question her. The group of people from Limitless Palace slowly walked forward. The surroundings were quiet, but everyone was still paying attention to their surroundings. The Battle of Zhuolu was not only a battle between cultivators. The demonic beasts here were also very strong. In addition, there were some traps or treasures here from time to time, so everyone was carefully looking around. Chapter 23:18. The treasures in the Battle of Zhuolu were not only treasures of heaven and earth, but also opportunities to increase one's strength. However, everyone had only heard about it from others. As for whether this information was accurate or not, no one was sure. Every sect did not say much about the treasures and opportunities in the Battle of Zhuolu. It was up to the cultivators to discover them for themselves. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others continued to move forward. The journey was very safe and they did not encounter anything out of the ordinary. They could not help but feel puzzled. Didn't they say that the Battle of Zhuolu is full of opportunities? Why haven't we discovered anything after walking for so long? Not even a single demon beast? Pei Yifun's eyes flashed with curiosity. He had been worried that they would encounter some kind of danger. But now he felt that he had been worried for nothing. We've only walked for half a day. The place we're at is too far away. It's not strange that we haven't encountered anything. Yan Aoshuang's expression was calm, but her eyes were still looking around vigilantly. No one knew when danger would approach. This kind of teleportation was random. It was not impossible for 2 groups of forces to be teleported to the same place. Everyone calm down. What's supposed to appear will appear. It's best to be careful. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, everyone stopped complaining. Bailey Hongzhuang's influence in the group was still very strong. Night slowly fell and the entire world fell into silence. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat on the ground with their backs against the trees. Yang Han was about to light a bonfire when Yan Aoshuang stopped him. It's better not to light a bonfire. If there are other groups not far from us, they will discover our presence when they see the bonfire. The disciples of every force were very strong. However, there were still differences between the strong and the weak among these forces. If the other party was not an extremely strong group, they could take advantage of this opportunity to snatch their identity badges. But if they were unlucky and met an extremely strong group, it would be a fierce battle. Today was only the first day of the battle for the deer. If his identity card was stolen just like that, it would be too embarrassing. Hearing Yan Aoshuang's words, Yang Han couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Only then did Bailey Hongzhuang express her stance. The weather is very cool, but it's not that cold. Let your contracted beast stand guard at the side. Even if we don't light a bonfire, there shouldn't be any problems. In the entire Limitless Palace team, more than half of the cultivators had their own contracted beasts. In fact, cultivators who had reached this level of cultivation would definitely think of a way to contract a demonic beast as long as they had the chance, because this could indirectly increase their strength. For a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other cultivators formed a small circle to rest together, while the contract beast surrounded Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, responsible for guarding the night. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that no one had any intention of resting. Instead, they had all entered into a state of cultivation. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. Every genius cultivator must have put in an astonishing amount of effort. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to reach this stage just by relying on their talent. As the night grew darker, everyone was already in a relaxed state. But at this moment, Baisher's voice suddenly rang in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. Chapter 23:19. Upon hearing Baisher's words, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately exited her cultivation state and surveyed her surroundings. Rustle, rustle, rustle. A soft sound entered Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. It was like the soft sound of a poisonous snake crawling on the ground. However, the number of these sounds was rather shocking. Is it a demonic beast? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. If a cultivator had launched a sneak attack, such a sound would not have been produced. The only possibility was that a group of demonic beasts was approaching. Baisher shook his head. I don't sense any demonic beast's aura. However, something doesn't feel right. Bailey Hongzhuang's suspicions deepened. If it wasn't a demonic beast, then the situation was far too strange. Everyone be careful. There seems to be some unknown objects around us. Bailey Hongzhuang did not delay any further and immediately called out to everyone. At the moment, they did not have a full understanding of the Battle of Zhuolu. They had to be extra careful. Everyone exited their cultivation state and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion. Young Palace Lord, what's going on? Listen. Bailey Hongzhuang gestured for everyone to keep quiet, indicating for everyone to listen carefully to the surrounding sounds. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The soft sound gradually drew closer. Only then did everyone hear it. Their contracted beasts also began to react. Upon seeing this, everyone's eyes could not help but fall upon Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher. Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher's hearing was much more sensitive than theirs. Previously they had not heard any commotion. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher had already heard it. This showed the difference in their abilities. Bailey Hongzhuang and Baisher clearly did not notice this. They had been in the desert world for too long and had been resting in the desert at night. Furthermore, the demonic beasts in the desert world were very good at launching sneak attacks from the sand. Hence, over time their hearing had improved significantly. As long as there was even the slightest movement, they would immediately discover it. Everyone frowned when they heard the sound. What's that sound? It doesn't sound like a human or a demonic beast. It sounds like a lot of people are here. Are we in trouble? For a moment, everyone picked up the weapons in their hands and looked around vigilantly. In just 2 minutes, everyone could see what was in front of them. However, when everyone saw this scene, they couldn't help but exclaim. Oh my God, what the hell is this? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the thing that suddenly appeared in front of her, and her clear eyes were filled with deep shock. This was a large patch of tree vines. Strangely, these tree vines were not green but black. In this dark night it was hard to tell. The most important thing was that the tree vines were like living creatures, attacking Bailey Hongzhuang and the others at full speed. Everyone be careful. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure flashed and lit the torch in her hand. In this dark night, no one could see the specific situation clearly, so it was very difficult to fight. At the same time, the other cultivators lit their torches as well, illuminating their surroundings. With one look, everyone was horrified to realize that they had been surrounded by tree vines. Their surroundings were densely packed with tree vines, covering the sky and the sun. What the hell is this? How could it be so terrifying? Chapter 23:20. Without waiting for the crowd to find out what these tree vines were, the tree vines' attack was already flying towards them. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her torch and the tree vines immediately retreated. These tree vines are afraid of fire. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, the cultivators who were originally prepared to throw down their torches and fight all held their torches firmly. After probing for a while, they found that the tree vines were indeed a little afraid of fire. However, although the tree vines had retreated slightly, they did not seem to have any intention of leaving. They only hesitated, looking for an opportunity to attack again. The cultivators held their torches, but the tree vines were everywhere. If they held their torches by their side, the tree vines would attack them from behind. In this darkness, it was impossible to guard against them. Vigorous elemental energy exploded from the crowd's bodies. Although the tree vines were extremely terrifying, the crowd's mental fortitude was not weak. Instantly, the sound of battle erupted from the crowd. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the torch to Xiaohei and quickly attacked the tree vines with the colored glaze sword. The tree vines were closing in from all directions. If they were surrounded by the tree vines, it would undoubtedly form a cage of tree vines, trapping them within. If they were to fall into that situation, they would most likely lose their lives. Using her powerful elemental energy and fulgurating shadows, Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were extremely swift. She realized that the tree vines were like the tentacles of an octopus and were extremely agile. Not only that, these tree vines were also extremely sturdy. If it were not for the colored glaze sword's extreme sharpness, it would not have been an easy task to cut these tree vines in half. These tree vines can actually bleed. Could it be that they have turned into spirits? Yang Han stared in shock at the blood left behind by the tree vines that had been cut off. He had never heard of such a situation before. There was an indescribable strangeness to it that sent chills down his spine. Hearing Yang Han's words, the crowd then noticed the wound on the tree vines. They did not know when it had started, but the ground had been stained with blood. Under the illumination of the fire, it was a ghastly sight. In an instant, the crowd felt their hair stand on end. The fact that these tree vines could move was already very strange. However, this tree vine's bleeding was too terrifying. However, at this moment, a cry of alarm suddenly rang out. "Everyone save me. I've been entangled by these vines." Everyone turned around and saw that Li Yangbing had been entangled by the tree vines. The speed of the vines was extremely fast. After wrapping around Li Yangbing's legs, they dragged him all the way. Before Li Yangbing could cut off the vines, countless vines quickly wrapped around Li Yangbing, turning him into a cocoon. "This tree vine is sucking my blood." Li Yangbing's face was deathly pale. He was the weakest person in the team. Who would have thought that he would be entangled by the vines just because of a moment of carelessness? If this continued, he would lose his life in less than 2 minutes. Everyone noticed at a glance that a bulge had appeared on the vine that was wrapped around Li Yangbing's body. It was sucking Li Yangbing's blood like a straw. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines when they saw this scene. This sort of thing was truly disgusting. Everyone rushed to Li Yangbing's side and cut off all the vines. Fresh blood flowed out from the wound, but it was not the blood of the tree vines but Li Yangbing's blood. Chapter 23:21. No one said a word. The scene that they had witnessed with their own eyes had given them the answer. However, the number of tree vines was so shocking and there were so many bloodstains. How many cultivators had been killed here? At this moment, the group realized that the Battle of Zhuolu was much more dangerous than they had imagined. Not only did they have to pay attention to these issues when they were fighting against cultivators, they also had to be careful of these unknown plants. The slightest carelessness could cost them their lives. Li Yangbing quickly swallowed the pill and her pale face began to look a little better. "Master, what the hell are these tree vines? I've never heard of them before." Xiao Bai's face darkened. These things were far too strange and had completely exceeded their understanding. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. "I've never heard of them before as well. The situation 1,000 years ago is quite different from the situation 1,000 years later. Many demonic beasts and plants have changed so much that we have no way of telling. However, since the rest of us have never heard of them, that proves that these things are very rare." The group's physical strength continued to deplete. Under the harassment of these tree vines, they did not even have the time to form their hand seals and could only continue to kill. Unfortunately, there were so many tree vines and their recovery speed was very fast. If this were to continue, it would not be long before everyone died of exhaustion. "We can't go on like this." Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Under the sneak attack of these tree vines, many of the group's disciples had already been injured. Sucking blood was an extremely taxing act on a cultivator's body. Even if they had taken the blood-forming pill, they would not be able to replenish all their blood in a short period of time. We'll form 2 circles. The 5 of us on the outer circle and our contracted beasts will deal with the tree vines. We'll protect the 5 in the inner circle so that they won't be disturbed and can unleash their martial techniques. I'm afraid that these tree vines can only be heavily injured by unleashing a large area of effect martial technique. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the group's eyes lit up. This was the only way now. If they were to rely on their continuous killing, who knows how long they would have to be busy for. Soon, the crowd formed 2 circles with Bailey Hongzhuang in the outer circle. Although the attack power of the martial arts technique she displayed was very strong, if the cultivators on the outer perimeter were to face these tree vines, once the tree vines broke through, then all their efforts would be for naught. White Lion stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang, its sharp claws slicing through the vines one after another. Its speed was even faster than a cultivator using a sword. Li Yongbing was still standing outside. His injuries had recovered a little, but his face was still very pale. Not only Li Yongbing but the other 2 cultivators were also injured. It wasn't that they weren't strong enough. It was just that they couldn't see the sneak attack of the vines clearly in the dark. If they were careless and were dragged away, it would be too late to save them. They could only wait for their teammates to rescue them. Bailey Hongzhuang understood in her heart that if the Tiangang sect team faced this tree vine, the probability of injury would be greatly reduced. This was because their training in the bloody ground abyss had made them accustomed to the feeling of being ambushed. As long as there was even the slightest movement, they would immediately react. Therefore, the possibility of being ambushed was greatly reduced. Chapter 23-22. As Yan Aoshuang and the other 4 began to form their hand seals, the yuan qi in the air began to churn. A powerful storm that was brewing was gradually taking shape. At this level, the destructive power of a martial skill unleashed by a single cultivator was already extremely shocking. When the 5 of them unleashed their skills together, the destructive power would definitely be a shocking storm. The tree vines seemed to have sensed the impending danger and their attacks instantly became even more frenzied. Instantly, the intensity of the attacks that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 4 had to endure greatly increased. Countless tree vines circled in front of them like the tentacles of an evil spirit, trying to take their lives. Suddenly, Li Yongbing was unable to dodge in time and was once again dragged away by the tree vines, revealing an empty space. The tree vines were clearly intelligent. It knew that Li Yongbing was the weakest person in the group and it was undoubtedly the easiest way to create an opening through him. When the other disciples saw that Li Yongbing had been dragged away, their expressions instantly turned ugly. Under such circumstances, they simply could not split themselves to save Li Yongbing. Furthermore, such a large opening would directly affect the 5 cultivators inside. Once the martial skill unleashed this time failed, it would be even more difficult to try again later on. Save me. Save me. Li Yongbing was dragged into the darkness just like that. An indescribable fear surrounded him. Now he no longer had any ability to resist. If his teammates did not come to save him, only death would await him. Everyone's expressions were extremely ugly. They really could not split themselves up in this situation. Xiaohe, Xiaobai, go. The moment they saw that Li Yongbing had been entangled by the tree vines, Bailey Hongzhuang had already ordered Xiaohe and Xiaobai. Previously, she had not allowed Xiaohe and Xiaobai to participate in the battle of the encirclement. This was so that they could immediately fill in the gaps if they encountered a situation like this. Li Yongbing was their teammate. Naturally, they could not give up on him. Yes. Xiaohe and Xiaobai replied in unison. In the next moment, under everyone's astonished gazes, Xiaohe and Xiaobai's figures quickly grew larger. Xiaohe leaped and quickly filled in the gap between Li Yongbing and Xiaobai immediately went to rescue Li Yongbing. The 2 beasts' sharp claws also left their bodies. As they brandished their claws, the tree vines snapped. The crowd stared in shock at the 2 beasts that had suddenly grown larger. They were so frightened that their hearts almost stopped. They thought that something else had appeared. However, after realizing that the 2 demonic beasts that had suddenly grown bigger were the 2 guys that had been sitting on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders, they were already shocked to the point that they couldn't be more shocked. Originally, they didn't care about these 2 guys, but Pei Yifan had told them that Bailey Hongzhuang's 3 contract beasts weren't simple. Everyone naturally believed that Bai Shi's abilities were not simple. However, these 2 contracted beasts were too small. They did not have the slightest bit of deterrence. It was unbelievable. No one had expected these two contracted beasts to have such heaven-defying abilities. Their figures had grown larger directly? They had never seen such contracted beasts in all their lives. They were really pretending to be pigs to eat tigers. Li Yangbing originally thought that he was going to lose his life just like that. Suddenly, he saw a pitch-black figure approaching and the despair in his heart grew. He had already been drained of his blood. Now that another beast had appeared, he had no choice but to die. Chapter 23-23. Only when the black demonic beast brought Li Yangbing back to the team did Li Yangbing realize that it was Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast. It had gone there to save him. Li Yangbing was extremely grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang for saving his life. If Bailey Hongzhuang hadn't saved him, he would have been dead by now. At the same time, the five of them had finished forming their seals. As the five of them attacked in all directions, an earth-shattering explosion resounded through heaven and earth. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already covered their ears with their elemental energy. Hence, they weren't affected at all. Along with the display of the martial skill, the surrounding area was instantly illuminated by the light. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were able to clearly see the situation around them. The tree vines seemed to be extending from the inside of the forest. It could be seen that the roots of the tree vines were still within the forest. Just by looking at them, they were able to extend so many tree vines. As for how terrifying the tree itself was, everyone felt that it was hard to imagine. Following the sound of the explosion, the surrounding tree vines were directly blown apart and turned into nothingness. Following that, everyone noticed that the tree vines were quickly escaping into the forest. Young Palace Master, should we chase after them and take a look? Long Xianjing asked. Long Xianjing was the strongest person in Limitless Palace's team other than Bailey Hongzhuang. Normally he was very respected in Limitless Palace. However, he didn't speak much and wasn't cold either. Bailey Hongzhuang originally wanted to chase after them to take a look. However, after seeing the injuries of the other cultivators, she decided to put the idea aside for the time being. Many of our teammates are injured. Currently, the most important thing is to heal their injuries. When the sun rises, we will go in and take a look. Not to mention the other cultivators who were injured, Li Yangbing's injuries were the most serious. If he didn't rest well, he might not be able to continue the operation tomorrow. Since they had come together to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu, they were a team. They definitely couldn't leave any of the cultivators behind. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's gaze fell on the injured cultivator and they nodded. Although they couldn't see the situation of the tree vines, Bailey Hongzhuang's consideration of everyone still made everyone very happy. If the captain only focused on fighting and didn't care about the situation of the cultivators, then they would be even more disappointed. That tree vine has also suffered heavy injuries. I believe that it won't attack again tonight. After the battle just now, everyone has lost a lot of energy. Rest at ease and I will keep watch. Young Palace Master, let me keep watch. Long Xianjing said. No matter what, Bailey Hongzhuang was a woman and her physical strength was not as good as a man's. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and shook her head. I'm fine. The battle just now didn't consume much of my energy. Besides, I'm very sensitive to some sounds and was able to detect it immediately. Everyone don't decline. Seize the time and rest well. In this battle of Zhuolu, we might encounter danger at any time. Everyone needs to be in their best condition for battle. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was gentle and dignified, not allowing anyone to refuse. Everyone thought for a while before circulating their cultivation techniques to recover. Chapter 23-24. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang had predicted, there was no more danger in the latter half of the night. When the sky gradually brightened, everyone's heart finally relaxed. Although the battle with the tree vines was soul-stirring, everyone's injuries were mostly superficial. As for the matter of their blood being sucked, everyone could only use the blood-forming pill to recover. Fortunately, before participating in the Battle of Zhuolu, everyone had prepared a lot of pills in case of emergency. These pills were all prepared by Limitless Palace for them. When fighting for glory for the palace would never be stingy. They had prepared all the pills that they could possibly need. Under such circumstances, everyone's recovery speed was also very fast. Long Xianjing and the others withdrew from their cultivation state. After the battle last night, everyone's relationship had become much closer. After all, Every cultivator who was entangled by the tree vines was rescued by their teammates. Therefore, many of the barriers and grudges had gradually disappeared under such circumstances. After the incident last night, everyone's opinion of Bailey Hongzhuang had changed again. Not to mention that they didn't discover anything before, Bailey Hongzhuang and her contracted beasts were able to discover danger at the first moment. This proved that Bailey Hongzhuang's vigilance was much stronger than theirs. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang's other two demonic beasts were also very shocking existences. Although they had now returned to their cute and petite appearance, no one dared to look down on these two contracted beasts. The battle strength that they had displayed yesterday was also very shocking. Now, everyone completely understood why Bailey Hongzhuang was able to become the Palace Master's young Palace Master. At least, the gap between them and Bailey Hongzhuang was not just a little bit. There was always someone better than you. The sentence was not wrong at all. Bailey Hongzhuang was not only talented, she was also very strong. Her brain was also very smart. Under such a chaotic situation last night, Bailey Hongzhuang was still able to command them calmly. There was no need to doubt her leadership. She was such an outstanding woman, yet her personality was not as arrogant and despotic as the other geniuses. At this moment they were truly convinced. Everyone took some dry rations and started eating. Last night's consumption was huge and today they were really hungry. After everyone finished eating, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at everyone and said, "How is everyone's recovery?" "There's no problem," everyone said. Sure enough, the exhaustion on everyone's faces had completely dissipated, and they had recovered their spirited appearance. As a cultivator's strength increased, his body's recovery ability also increased. Ordinary injuries could be healed very quickly. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze fell on Li Yangbing's body. She could see that Li Yangbing still looked a little weak. Last night he had used up too much of his energy. Although the hematopoietic pill could increase the speed of his blood production, it could not restore all his blood in a short period of time. "Li Yangbing, how do you feel?" "Young Palace Master, don't worry. I can keep up with everyone. I'm fine." Li Yangbing felt a wave of guilt in his heart. Usually he was also a very strong fighter. He did not expect that in the Battle of Jianghu he would drag everyone down. He was really embarrassed. Chapter 23-25. Hearing everyone's words of concern, Li Yangbing hurriedly waved his hand. "Everyone, don't worry. I'm fine now." Although his body was still weak, it did not affect his movements. "Li Yangbing, when we're moving, don't do anything. Rest well." Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face was filled with a caring smile. She could also see Li Yangbing's current state. As long as he did not do anything later, it would not affect him much. "Thank you, young palace mistress." Li Yangbing looked at Bailey Hongzhuang gratefully. He did not want to drag everyone down because of him. "Since that's the case, let's set off. Let's see what the vines that attacked us yesterday were." Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and looked in the direction where the vines had gone last night. There were still many bloodstains on the ground, so it was easy for them to track them down. Long Xianjing and the rest had a serious expression on their faces. Last night they were caught off guard and were ambushed. If it wasn't for the fact that their vision was obstructed in the dark, and the fact that the vines were blocking the moonlight, they wouldn't have been in such a sorry state. Today's weather was clear. They had to go and see what the vines from last night were. "I will definitely kill those evil things. After so many years, who knows how many people have been harmed by these vines." Yan Aoshuang's face was filled with anger. She had never been in such a sorry state since she had stepped on the path of cultivation. It was really infuriating. The things in this Battle of Jianghu are really too strange. I have never heard of such things in this world. Pei Yifan frowned. He had thought that the Battle of Jianghu did not mention anything about danger. He did not expect that they would see true danger on the first day of the Battle of Jianghu. The strength of their team was extremely strong. If it had been any other team facing the encirclement of the vines, they would have been completely annihilated. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest followed the bloodstains. Only then did they realize that the range of the vines was unexpectedly far. Originally they were only at the outskirts of the forest. Now they were following the bloodstains into the forest. The closer they got to the forest, the more their hearts sank. What kind of tree vines could extend to such a terrifying length? It was truly shocking. Finally, the group arrived at the nest of the tree vines. In their line of sight, a huge black tree appeared in everyone's line of sight. The size of this tree exceeded everyone's expectations. This was because the tree in front of them was so huge that it was comparable to a 3-story building. Countless vines twined around the tree. The winding and huge vines made everyone understand why the vines could extend so far last night. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw the tree vines, she suddenly understood. I understand why we didn't see any traces of demonic beasts along the way. I'm afraid it's because of the existence of these tree vines. Last night they had already seen the combat power of the tree vines. It was really too terrifying. If a monster beast was targeted by the tree vines, it would have no chance to escape and would be sucked dry. Chapter 23-26. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone's heart trembled. So this was the reason behind all of this. It seems like the blood that these tree vines have absorbed is not only from human cultivators, but also from demonic beasts. Long Xinjing looked at the terrifying tree vines in front of him. How many demonic beasts and cultivators' blood did it absorb to be able to develop to such a level? Everyone nodded their heads. The cultivators who had participated in the Battle of Zhuolu were all dragons and phoenixes among men. Even if they were ambushed by the tree vines, only a minority would lose their lives. However, the demonic beasts in this forest were in for a bad time. The Battle of Zhuolu is a small world created for cultivators like us. Normal dangers will not be able to pose much of an obstacle to us. So, the things here are probably not normal. We have to be more careful from now on. There are many things that cannot be seen through the eyes of the outside world. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly understood the crux of the matter. This Battle of Zhuolu was also a test for them. If there were only normal demonic beasts inside, it would mean that if she were to participate in the competition with her current strength, there would be no challenge at all. Instead, it would be like playing around. The various factions would obviously not let them have it so easy. It was likely that they were not the only ones who had encountered something like this. The other groups had also encountered something unusual. In reality, everything was just as Bailey Hongzhuang had predicted. Every group that had participated in the Battle of Zhuolu had encountered something unusual. After a huge battle, they were finally able to deal with it. Master, if this thing was created by the various factions to test us, could it be that the so-called treasure is related to this thing? Xiao Hei's eyes suddenly lit up. This thing was really too unusual. Previously, she had already heard that there were various treasures and opportunities in the Battle of Zhuolu. Now that she thought about it, these treasures were definitely not placed on the ground for you to obtain. If it was really that simple, what was the difference between it and picking it up for free? When everyone heard Xiao Hei's words, their eyes instantly lit up. Looks like we have to think of a way to deal with this strange tree. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a playful smile. Originally, they did not have the determination to kill this tree vine. This was because the tree vine did not look easy to deal with. Continuing to fight with it would only be a waste of energy. If there was a possibility that there was a treasure inside, then everything would be different. Suddenly, everyone looked at the big tree with a sharp gaze. No matter what, they had to get rid of this tree today. Only after taking care of the tree would they know if their guess was correct or not. If he was right, then the more difficult it was to deal with, the more precious the treasure behind it would be. Let's work together to kill these giant trees. What do you all think? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at everyone. Although she was the leader of the team, she still needed to seek everyone's opinion on such matters. Young Palace Master, we agree. Everyone expressed their stance. Last night, they had been tortured by this giant tree for half a day. Today they had a reason to kill it. Naturally, they would not refuse. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and looked at Li Yangbing. Li Yangbing, you haven't fully recovered yet. Do what you can. Chapter 23-27. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were still some distance away from the giant tree. Hence, the giant tree had not taken the initiative to attack Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. Once the group had made their decision, they immediately walked towards the giant tree. As the group approached, the vines on the giant tree began to twist and turn rapidly. Upon closer inspection, the group could see that there were wounds on the vines. It was obvious that they had been inflicted by their attacks last night. Without waiting for the group to take the initiative to attack, the giant tree acted as if it had seen its enemy the moment it saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. The vines that filled the sky immediately attacked them. Everyone be careful. The vine's nest is here. I'm afraid that their power will be even more frightening. Bailey Hongzhuang left them with a warning and began the battle. They wanted to completely destroy the giant tree. The other cultivators reacted quickly as well. Normally they were all capable of holding their own. Although the giant tree in front of them was strange in every way, Destroying it was still very simple. It was simple and crude. They just had to directly blow it up. Surging yuan qi whizzed out from the group's body. After last night's experience, everyone had a certain level of tacit understanding. A portion of the cultivators were responsible for dealing with the vines while the others directly used large-scale destructive martial arts techniques. All they had to do was to directly blow the giant tree to pieces. After Bailey Hongzhuang had exchanged blows with the vines, she realized that the vines' power was much stronger than last night. It was obvious that the closer the distance, the stronger the combat power of the vines. The giant tree naturally knew what Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were thinking. The vines extended outwards and swept wildly towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, intending to bind Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest so that they could not move. As all the vines came down from the giant tree, the group was shocked to find that there was a human face on the giant tree's trunk. Seeing this, everyone could not help but stare blankly. Oh my God, what the hell is this thing? This tree has really become a spirit. Does it matter if we kill it? What's there to be afraid of? This fellow has lived for so many years. It's not strange for it to become like this. Who knows, the treasure behind it might be extremely powerful. As cultivators, most of them were fearless people. Originally, cultivation was to defy the heavens and change one's fate. A cultivator's lifespan would continuously increase along with their cultivation. Hence, there were many things that everyone did not care about. Boom. Boom boom. One attack after another rapidly formed in the group's hands. Without hesitation, they attacked the giant tree. However, the next scene caused everyone to be shocked once again. A terrifying black light spread out from the giant tree, as if it was a barrier, blocking everyone's attacks. Very quickly, everyone realized that their attacks, although the tree did not cause the tree's attack, it was much weaker than what they had expected. How can this be? She did not expect that this would be a fierce of the tree Hongzhuang, who knew that the trees to the tree to the tree trees to the Bailn was in fact, the tree to uses to the tree. This, of the trees to the tree, this giant tree, of this to be to survive. In the past, there must have been other groups of cultivators who encountered this giant tree, but they were unable to deal with it. This situation is very normal, so everyone should be mentally prepared. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.